Again, my name is Boris Moyson. I'm a co-founder of Black Men Talk Tech. Welcome to our talk on having an acquisitive mindset during times of crisis. After this panel, stay tuned for the next panel on government contracts, and at the end, speed networking. On this panel, we'll be discussing one tactic for getting through this economic crisis on stronger footing. Our panelists today are Doug Spite, who should be coming on shortly by his cell phone, and Dawn Dickson. I'll have the speakers introduce themselves. Right now, we only have Dawn, but she's a superstar. So why don't you introduce yourself, Dawn?
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being a part of this event, and thank you everyone for your patience and for joining on this Friday. I'm Dawn Dickson. I am a serial founder, currently running PopCom, Flat Out of Heels, and Wiser. So those are my top three things that I'm focused on, and I'm really excited to talk about our recent acquisition of Wiser in this COVID environment.
Oh, very nice. So just to be clear, like a lot of startups are doing pretty well, and I've heard you've had a good year in general. Many other startups aren't doing as well. Spend is down in general too. Couple that with the raging pandemic, the social unrest, and confinement, and you just have a tough situation for a certain segment of our founders. We're trying to come up with like tactics to do well. In general, one of our tactics we're going to talk about around merging and getting together with other practitioners and other entrepreneurs requires some vulnerability of like giving up your company. Doug and I, who should be joining soon, we've done some talk together around research that the SBA the SBA puts out quite frequently that highlights that people of color, particularly when they're doing okay with their startup, are generally reluctant to give up equity. But would love to speak with you, Dawn, on why working with a strategic partner, either through a merger or some sort of partnership, may be a strong option to emerge out of this crisis on better footing.
I mean, for me, overall, partnership has always been a growth strategy outside of this. So we partner with several other companies to basically, so we don't have to rebuild everything from scratch and reinvent the wheel. If someone's doing something that we want to do or that we want to reach a certain segment, we'll partner to expand. Partnering can mean just that. Partnering, it doesn't always mean giving up equity, but when we're speaking about actually either selling the company or selling some shares in the company, you have to think about the end goal all the time. So a lot of us seem to be short-sighted and we have this fear or scarcity mentality that's really been ingrained in us since we were born, unless our parents taught us differently, but we've always been maybe not shown representation of us in very large positions and as big CEOs of big companies or getting billion-dollar exits. I've yet to see a Black founder get a billion-dollar exit. So we sometimes don't think that big. And sometimes you need every company that I've seen get a big exit or really grow large has always had investors or strategic partners to help them get there. And so during this time of COVID, as I'm looking at ways to continue to grow PopCom, as Natasha is looking at ways to continue to grow Wiser, we were already working together. PopCom's growing money fast. Raising money fast and scaling quickly. And Wiser had kind of hit like a plateau where they needed more resources and more team members. I felt like it was a great time to join forces. Now that did involve PopCom acquiring the company and she essentially giving up her equity, but then she joined our team and now she has equity in the big picture, which now that's two startups under one. And so thankfully she could see the big picture, and what we brought to the table was capital resources, a team that she desperately needed, and a strategy to help grow both businesses.
And you know what? It's we're not advising that people go out and start merging with everyone. Because it's probably not the best idea for all companies to get together, right? And finding the right partner. Could you talk a little bit more about PopCom how that came about, and what pain points made Wiser a good fit for you? And give us some background on Wiser too, if you
I'll
can.
give the abbreviated version of this. So PopCom was created out of my business, Flat Out of Heels, which is still in business today, selling rollable ballet flats for women in vending machines when their feet hurt. So I, at the time, was an operator, retailer, selling my shoes in vending machines as a distribution channel. Doing that, I realized that vending machines were just out of date. They were dumb. They don't collect data. They were antiquated. And my needs as a retailer looking to scale in this distribution channel were not being met. My first thing was to go out and find a solution. It was not to build my own solution. But then after spending a few years researching and trying to find a partner that I could license, it didn't exist. And so I seen the opportunity to create something, to be a market maker and create software that helps to make automated retail hardware smarter. And that hardware includes vending machines, self-service ordering kiosks, and also lockers, so package lockers. Anywhere where customers transact, want to order a product, and also just close the last mile in retail. So the last mile is anywhere between, get it shipped out and getting it to your customer, closing that last mile. So when we built out the system for PopCom, the software system that comprises of a customer-facing point of sale system, a data dashboard, so an administration dashboard, very similar to Shopify for the retailer, and then a overall admin dashboard that we operate. We integrated Wiser into our customer-facing point of sale system as a way to collect customer feedback. So Wiser is a gamified survey company. They were developed to really be a competitor to SurveyMonkey or even these Google forms that we're doing now for surveys, but a gamified survey. If you're in market research, you understand that surveys get a very low response rate overall because they're boring and nobody wants to fill out a survey. But Wiser makes surveys that feel like you're playing a game. And when people are engaged, we're always on our phones swiping and doing things. When they're engaged, they just have a longer attention span. So Wiser was achieving 80% plus completion rates. And that's very, very good in survey land. And so we integrated Wiser because we felt like it would be great to have a survey at the end of the transaction to ask customers how their experience was shopping on the PopCom point of sale system and incentivizing them for taking that survey with some type of a discount. Then they also will get an email after purchase with their receipt and then another survey that the retailer could customize. And, it was already a part of our strategy, and we did not see another product like that on the market that was as good as Wiser. And Wiser really always wanted to be an enterprise SaaS company. And Wiser had worked with big companies like Unilever and Google and Procter & Gamble on service-based projects, executing surveys for specific activations, but really we're on the path to being enterprise SaaS, which so is PopCom. And so when we discussed, Natasha and I as friends and, fellow founders, her strategy for growth, she's a new mother, she's really focused on her child right now. We all know if you're a founder, the fundraising is so exhausting.
So you were talking about getting together with Wiser. It made sense for your partner, Nataria. Could you talk about what?
Yes.
Natasha?
Natasha, yes. She's an Indonesian female. Everyone thinks she's black. She's actually Indonesian.
I thought I said that right. Was it Natasha?
Natasha. You said okay, Natalia, but it's okay. It's all good here. It's all good.
Okay. And so some of her issues for getting together was being a new mother. It was just difficult. It's just a difficult operating environment in general. And I guess 2020 will make it easier.
She didn't want to go out and raise capital again. She needed some committed and dedicated team members, which PopCom has. And, we're very blessed to have a huge pipeline of investors. So raising capital is not a current challenge for PopCom. And I love Wiser. I've always been a fan of the product since I met the team in 2016. So it was a perfect marriage for me because it's two enterprise SaaS and both of them work with the same type of customers. I mean, P&G, a shared customer. They have customers that are dreams for us, Unilever and Google and, Kroger. So it just made perfect sense because of also the wealth of information, experience, relationships that Natasha brings. So it's like I'm a solo founder.
Yeah.
Having another real founder come into the team to help me build the business, which I really needed.
Was there anything you were concerned? Have you looked at acquiring another company in the past or merging with another company previously?
No. Actually, I take that back. This year, we got opportunity to acquire another company that is also a partner of ours. And they were just very, very, very high out of our price range for acquisition. It was nice to be considered, but I got my feet wet in understanding what it takes to acquire a company. And it's not easy. It's a lot of documents to go through, and due diligence is, you can get burned in due diligence. Due diligence is a very long process, but it's necessary because things can slip through the cracks. So I learned that.
And really what I'm trying to get to is trying to figure out, what type of signs acquirers see in a potential partner that could be signals of this may not be a good fit.
Now, there's a couple of different acquisitions you can do. Acquire the whole company, or you could do an asset sale where you just acquire the assets of the business, not necessarily the company. So we did an asset acquisition for Wiser. So we didn't purchase Wiser Inc. We just purchased the assets. So you have to look at things like what type of debt, the company is carrying, outstanding obligations the company has, any type of outstanding investors, what happens with those investors, any employees, what the intellectual property is. And it has to, for us, we just had to make sure that it wasn't going to be overwhelming for us. We have to come in, and how many people from the founding team have to come? In this case, we weren't required to hire anyone, but we wanted Natasha, but that was it. In some cases, the whole team wants a new home. The last acquisition that I talked to, there were 8 team members that wanted to come over. And I mean, can you imagine? That's like almost doubling my current staff, my current monthly burn. So I think about all of those things, what does it take to operate, how much additional software engineering hours are going to be needed. We already have all these engineers working on PopCom. Okay, now who's going to come over and work on Wiser every day? And we're still working on this. This acquisition happened last month.
Everyone heard about your record-breaking offering this year in raise. Now, I don't want to mess this up, but was this a tokenized offering?
No, last year was a token, and then we did not issue the token, so everyone has equity. So last year, I became the first female founder to raise over $1 million in a equity crowdfunding campaign. This year, I did it again. We raised another $1 million again this year, and it wasn't a token. The reason it wasn't a token is because there's currently no secondary exchange approved to trade those tokens. So there's no point of having a token if you can't do anything with it. The purpose of a token over just what you call it, a certificate, stock certificate, is that a token you can actually trade. And Brooke asked, a token no, a token is a crypto token. So it's a security token. It's a security token. It's okay, Brooke. It's a security token, and it's just, you take your cap table. So your capitalization table is where you list out how many shares are in your company are allocated and who owns those shares. And you tokenize that, so you make it digital. So it's like cryptocurrency, but it's just security token, not a token that you can use a utility act. You can't buy anything with it. It represents a share in the company. And the reason to have that would be to allow for liquidity in the form of trading or selling these tokens on a secondary exchange called an ATS. But the SEC, which is the Security Exchange Commission, has not yet approved an ATS exchange. And so my investors will be holding tokens that they can't move.
Yeah.
We have not issued them. We can go back and issue them anytime, but I wouldn't issue them until they actually had a function, which
right.
They don't right now.
They don't have to change it. So, and the reason why
it's the SEC.
Yeah, they'll get there slowly but surely. The reason why I asked is because in your case, when merging, yours was actually an acquisition, not really a merge. what are some of the unique ways you can go about coming up with funding or coming up with a strategy to acquire a company? It doesn't always have to be cash based. It could be equity, but
Yeah, definitely be
I
equity.
think out loud.
It could definitely be equity. So you could do small cash, no cash, or small cash down and give equity in your company if your company has value. It depends on the capital position of the company that you're acquiring. In most cases, companies, and I'm not speaking about Wiser, I'm speaking about my knowledge of most companies who do M&A. A lot of them, especially startups who are acquired very early, it's in a distressed situation where they need to exit because they run out of capital, but they still have strong IP and strong customers. They want to keep the business going. So they roll underneath another company that can help them continue to grow. We were able to capitalize this transaction with our most recent fundraise of $1 million. So it wasn't a huge, we were very fortunate to get a really great combination of equity and cash for this deal, which the terms are undisclosed. But we did, in my diligence on my own, talk to several different types of organizations, institutional organizations that fund acquisitions and fund mergers. And so resources are out there. If it makes sense, you can definitely find people to come in and fund you making an acquisition if you can show that it's going to make an immediate impact on your bottom line. For us, Wiser was already generating revenue for a few years. PopCom is early revenue. We are only generating revenue right now from taking deposits on the delivery of our product because PopCom is a software company and we don't make money. We don't make MRR, monthly recurring revenue. And so we have our SaaS, which is software as a service, activated. It's going to take some time. But the fact that we are acquiring a company that's generating revenue now, it's great for our balance sheet. And so it's a strategy of having cash flow coming in as we're still continuing to build out the product.
That's brilliant because my follow-up question was going to be, how did your investors feel about it? You raise this money and then you're off, spending and buying already. But you're saying this was a brilliant move, not only from the technical side, but also from the income statement side and balance sheet, I guess, because it's generating cash.
Yeah, it is. It started generating cash right away when we acquired it. And so the great thing about my business structure is, my investors don't vote. So I definitely keep them in the loop and I inform them, but the decisions for the company operations are made by the board. I'm on the board and we vote. And my board is comprised of people that understand business and are always going to act in the best interest of the company, not investors. And I decided not to have investors on my board because I didn't want anyone being biased with their decisions, bias in the form of making decisions to protect their investment,
yeah,
not off of what my vision is or what's even best for the company right now, short term. So luckily, my investors, they just have to support what I'm doing.
That's brilliant governance. That's sick. We have a question from Victor. And he asked, I think you may have touched on this already, but we may want to delve into it. When acquiring a company, does the technical architecture play a role in furthering that decision?
I mean, it definitely did. And we definitely did, a code review. We did a deep dive into, do we have engineers that are working with that stack? And it was different tech than we work with for PopCom. So we did have to bring someone else in that's a specialist in the technology stack that Wiser is built on. It's a very unique stack that it's built on. And we didn't have an expert in that area. So, but my CTO did a code review and said, okay, this isn't our expertise, but we can get someone and we can oversee this. So absolutely, because the architecture is definitely important to understand. Can you even take this over and build on it? Because God forbid, starting it from scratch, right? Or hiring someone very high in salary to work on something, it could be a lot. But when you do acquisition, you got to think about everything. Like if you can see in my office, I had, added Wiser to the walls and added Wiser to the door. And I mean, it's a lot of, it's not just making an acquisition. That's just the beginning.
Right. Yeah, no, and I definitely have that problem. Not only from with my particular company, Funder, our software is all custom made. Our developer built his own operating system, and
Wow.
when it comes to like integrating the team and bringing on people, the difficulty is if no one else knows his ecosystem, there are two problems. They likely don't want to work on it, number one, because it's not adding value. So if they leave, they could add value to some other platform because you're working with popular language. And then number two, it's like it's just hard to integrate with everything else and having the learning curve. You got to come on and figure something out.
Exactly.
That could be difficult. And here's another question, right? Like, in I don't know if you did go out and speak to investors about this, but you know, for all the people out there that may have to raise funds to do a good acquisition, there may be a company out there that's a perfect fit for them. How do you view that conversation going down with an investor? Is that an easy conversation to have? Is raising money to execute an acquisition for something that's accretive right away, an easier way to raise funds than, let's say, just raising money for operations and expanding?
I say no fundraise is easy. It's not easy to do it at all. None of it is easy. And it really depends on your company. For me, okay, so I have to preface that I am a non-traditional fundraiser. I mean, I did raise $1 million from VC and accredited angels, but the other 2.8 million I've raised is from crowdfunding and smaller micro angel investors. So it's different conversations because I have control of my company, myself and my board. I didn't have to go to investors. So I'm not even the best person to give advice on this because I run my company in a way that I don't have to do that. I don't want to do that. When I make a decision that I want to do something for the business and the board who knows it inside and out think it's the best decision, we're going to do that.
And I wanted to add on that because, we were talking with one of our advisors, Brian Burkeen, a couple months back about doing research. What was that?
My board member.
Oh, get out of here. I had no idea, by the way.
Facilitate the transaction.
Yeah. So we were talking about doing research on what platforms people of color, Black people, we were talking about Black people, have the most success on completing a raise. Would it be, going to the traditional venture? Would it be angel groups? Or would it be crowdfunding? And we think crowdfunding is probably best for people of color. A lot of our friends that have done crowdfunding have been extraordinarily successful. The flip side of that, sometimes going to these exclusive angel groups or talking to a venture fund, and you're like, yeah, my buddy doesn't want to pitch to you. He's going to crowdfund or she's going to crowdfund, and they're like, oh, don't do that. It's a scarlet letter, and you're like, really? Well, I don't think so. He hasn't had luck talking to you guys, but now he has an opportunity to raise. You're like, it's a scarlet letter.
It is.
What's your thought on that?
It is because they're threatened by it. They're threatened by the fact that we don't need them anymore. They're threatened by that now we can raise millions of dollars, 50 million in a Reg A plus, now about to be 5 million in a Reg CF. We don't have to be a part of their system. And I'm going to tell you the truth. They don't understand it at all. I did a talk recently with Silicon Valley Bank, and it was a big person at Silicon Valley Bank. They did not understand crowdfunding. I have conversations with VCs on a regular basis. They have no comprehension. They don't even take the time to read about it and understand about it. They'll make assumptions that since I have 4,800 investors, I have 4,800 lines on my cap table. I don't. I have 2 lines on my cap table, each for the separate crowdfunding syndicate. They're very threatened by us having our own power and control. They're extremely threatened by, the laws being changed to where the wealthy is not in control of all the wealth. They're very, very threatened. So yes, a scarlet letter, because they want to discourage us from taking our own life and our own future and our generational wealth into our own hands. They don't want us to do that. So when they told me in my face that if you crowdfund, I'll never invest in you again, I said, well, bye, shit. I don't need your money. I said, why?
I wish we all had the balls and gusto enough to, to do that ourselves.
We all
But
must have the balls and the gusto to do whatever it takes to grow our business and move it forward, whether it's go out and raise $50 million on VC or go out and raise crowdfunding, whatever our path is. Some people who are in Silicon Valley or went to Stanford or have these relationships, they can easily raise VC capital. But for me, I'm based in Columbus, Ohio. I have a long career. I have a very supportive base of people across the world. I'm tapping into that. So it's also being self-aware. It's not for everyone, but I think eventually it will be for everyone as the public becomes more confident and more educated in this as a tool to get in on early stage deals. I mean, just one more statistic or one more thing I want to share. We have been left out of deals forever, okay, since slavery and Jim Crow and everything. We've been left out of deals because of proximity to opportunities. We weren't close enough to get in on the big, even if we were legally allowed to invest as Black people prior to 1933, they didn't tell us about it. They were going to go say, oh, hey, Black man, this is 1920s and 30s. We have a big opportunity for JP Morgan Chase or whatever. They're not telling us. Then in 1933, they passed a securities law where you have to be an accredited investor to invest in early stage deals. So since 1933, we have not been able to get in on early stage deals unless you already have $1 million net worth. However, since then, they do everything in their power to prevent us from having $1 million net worth. So how are we ever going to create wealth if we didn't have access to these deals? So people don't understand how the shift of wealth is occurring. And I could go on and on as a way that I think that it's
everyone wants to hear you. You could speak as long as you want.
Okay. It's so important for us to do this because right when we're starting to get some economic power, here comes COVID and the lockdown. And I heard yesterday that 50,000 minority businesses have closed down permanently. And so we have to come together as a community and fund our businesses. They talked about how everything under the New Deal and yes, Reconstruction is being dismantled in front of our eyes. And so it's so important now more than ever for us to come in and fund our businesses ourselves with whatever we have left, because let this COVID thing ride out. It's going to be way more economic impact for our communities. Meanwhile, the billionaires are getting to be trillionaires right now. As they say, billionaires are made in a recession. It's not us, but it can be us. It can be us. So,
and that's the reason we had this talk around. It's a great point actually. Crisis is where money is made. We had this talk around what to do. Particularly two companies that are struggling. Each of you were doing one output individually. Together, you may be doing 50. So there's opportunity there for those who are flush with cash. This is the time to go around and start talking to all those companies you were talking to last year that like, oh, I'm $100 million in value. Like, hey, where are we now? Let's have a real conversation and let's get together. And I'll give you a little of my background. I was in wealth management in private banking at Goldman Sachs for a few years. And, for the last decade or so, we've been telling everyone, listen, valuations in all markets are pretty high right now. And some of them, fluctuate, but by and large, particularly in the equities market, extraordinarily high. We know at any time something's going to happen that we have not planned for. This party's going to be over. So let's plan for it. So our clients have been planning for this for the last decade, and they have been licking their chops because their money's sitting in the bank and they're waiting for things to fall apart so then they can start acquiring assets. And then when the economy,
buying up businesses, buying up land, it's about to be.
When the cycle turns, the value of all those assets take off and their net worth like triples, doubles, quadruples. And we're sitting here like, defending our money and defending our equity when it's like, now it's time to go out and take advantage of everyone having a hard time and trying to get together so we can get out on stronger footing. The other thing I wanted to touch on was, the state of, private investing, particularly with venture and angel investing. And for an industry that demands innovation and that demands displacement of established enterprises, they haven't changed much themselves. It's still the same old, I have my own investment strategy and, my networks, and don't call me or email me, because if you're not coming through my network, I'm not going to look. Send an application, I may get to it, right? And truth be told, they're probably most comfortable with investing, in their networks and investing through references. One of the problems with that, if you look at how much money is raised in early stage investing every year, VC, angel, it's probably $85 to $90 billion annually. Wow. $85 to $90 billion. And I think, Black and Latinos and maybe women, when you add all that group together, those three groups together, I think we probably make up 3 to 6% of all the funding. And I think that's on the higher end. It could be somewhere a little bit.
Waste time on them damn statistics.
You're not one. Exactly. Right.
I don't get my time.
Yeah. And
if I listen to it, which I wish we would even quit reciting it, because who even pulls these numbers? But they'll say things like Black women get 0 point something of funding. That means zero. 0 point whatever is actually rounded up to zero, okay? And so you're not going to tell me that I have a 0% chance. That's a deflating statistic. Why do you think they pump it out? Black women get 0% of funding, i.e. Black women stop asking. No, I don't believe you, actually. I don't believe you. So therefore, I'm going to go raise. They tell me the average money a Black woman raises is $36,000. I've raised $3.3 million. I have friends that have raised $50 million, Black women. They're too busy heads down working to be even talking on Zoom these days. Because you get 50 million, you better go make some money. So, I'm here advocating for all of us, but I just encourage everyone to ignore the statistics. We're going to create our own. And like Brooke said, how can you pattern match if you're looking for the next new thing? Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Forget them.
Yeah,
I just mean anybody that's not an ally. Anyone, it's not about race for me. I mean them. If you're not with us, you're a them. If you're not down, you're them. It's you either with us or you're against us. That's
it. The other problem I have is with just like outlier effects. Whenever you see an outlier, something's going on with that result. You gotta look at it when like 75 to 80% of the recipients of funding looks like one particular group, and the entire industry is proud of that. You gotta look at it sort of cross-eyed or side-eyed rather, and sort of dig back a little bit and just say, in any other system, whenever we see an outlier effect like that, we know it's not optimal, right? And essentially what we're trying to say is, if you allow everyone else to join the party, we all may be making money. It's like, oh, Dawn doesn't have a good idea. Brian, of course they have brilliant ideas. So let them have the opportunity to get out there and play ball too.
I think we're looking to partner too. I mean, the topic of this conversation was, acquisitive mindset, and it's also partnering, and when all of the Black Lives Matter research with George Floyd this year, everyone was looking for, where can we find a website to buy Black? Well, there's a whole bunch of them, but there's not one that's trusted. And so it's like, if everyone would have come together and pulled those resources, and it's something we have to do as Black people, we kind of have this scarcity mentality or competing against one another, not understanding that there's enough money to go around. I mean, they're printing money every day and people are sitting on it. So there's enough. I think partnering is so critical. So even at this time right now, you want to do something and you see someone else doing what you want to do, but you feel like you can do it better. Don't start another one. Join their team.
Yep.
Every founder needs a team. We all need team members. The hardest part of bringing your vision to market and bringing your vision and scaling it to millions is the team. I can be me with my idea all day. I cannot execute this by myself. I have 10 people and I need more and I'm hiring right now. So it's like if you see someone doing something that you feel like I can make it better, go work with them. Then get an exit together. Then you all got to exit. Then you go do your own thing. And then here we go. Voila. The pattern is changing because we're changing it, not waiting on them. So we have to stop this mindset of, as Black people, that we don't want to work together. It's crazy.
So you talked about maybe needing to hiring some people. Have to follow up with you after the call to sort of get what you're looking for and to blast it out to everyone out here just in case they may have some thoughts.
Yes, and we're hiring. We have a lot of people in our pipeline too. I'm grateful. The PopCom is a popular place to work right now. So thank you, everybody.
Man, I'm telling you, even before we start the call, you just inspire everyone that's a part of the culture. You inspire us all. You inspire me. And, now, you know, at some point, I know it's called Black Men Talk Tech, but it's not only about Black men. We're just the guys that's bringing it, and everyone's part of the community and the ecosystem. We need to sit down and dissect a little bit more of your thoughts, because it was completely.
I'm happy to do that. I'm super passionate about this. First of all, you know, it's my life's work for sure, is helping move forward the economic empowerment of our people. I know that I'm definitely a vessel of that. The crowdfunding is one tool, and when I exit this business, I'll be able to be a lot more impactful. And even now, I mean, I invest in startups, but I feel that my purpose is deeply tied to bringing us into a place where the Black Wall Street mentality is not one place in Tulsa, or it is the way we live and the way we operate every day, all day. I mean, I drove 30 minutes out of my way to go to a Black-owned hair blowout bar today when there was a White-owned one around the corner. I'm going to do all that I can to move our people forward. And I think if we all had that commitment, we would see very big changes in a short amount of time.
Yeah, no, and listen, to touch on one of the points you brought up, and just Doug's not here, so I'll talk about my personal experience. My co-founder, Lauren Washington, she's one of the founders of Black Women Talk Tech. We spun out a company out of our conference series called Funder, which we're building it out now. We just joined an accelerator in Texas, but it's meant to use algorithms to tier through an application of a startup, to vet it and then to give it a score. And in high scoring startups, we put in an investment portfolio. We did that to remove bias from the investment process, right? And then we're speaking to investors and they're like, but we really want to talk to people. And I'm like, what about these factors? And they're like, oh, those factors look pretty dope. And I'm like, yeah, so you have a pool here of 5,000 applications you probably didn't look at. This could bump a lot of the good stuff to the top, and you're not out there looking at the tallest, handsomest guy to give money to. So we're working on that. And then the other side of our platform, we have investors come on. So it's a marketplace, and they invest directly into these portfolios, particularly for young, up and coming Black professionals who are now like coming into their wealth, and they're looking to angel invest. But the difficulty is originating a lot of companies. You need like 20 companies to 30 companies in a portfolio to have some success over 3 years, right? So everyone has had that experience where like you gave your buddy some money and you heard back from him 4 years later when he's winding his company down. You can hear from him before. And so like you may feel jaded from that, but if you had invested in 20 companies, maybe smaller for all of them, you may have had some success. Right. And then you would de-risk your investment, and by looking at which companies you're taking off and doubling down on the ones that are winning, right? Exactly. So we're teaching investors how to do that. Our issue was our technical development issue was on the portion of the platform where we have to transfer funds. So we had this partnership with Stripe and we were ready to go. We just joined the accelerator. It's time to do marketing. And Stripe calls back and they're like, are the investors buying securities? And we're like, yes. And they're like, I know we approved it, but now we have to back out. So that, weeks before launch, our payment gateway is gone. So, down on the luck, a little depressed, talking to a friend of mine about the issue. He goes, call this other company, black owned, guy's an attorney, he owns an RIA, and he works with Silicon Valley Bank. And it turns out that Silicon Valley Bank, when working with a traditional RIA, feels comfortable about moving money back and forth, right? Because after them. And this guy's fee is high because he does all the background checks and everything, and he transfers the funds. But I was just like, can you get me up and running quickly? He was like, yeah. And I'm just like, well, let's just split the fees 50-50 and get this thing done. And let's just have a partnership and go. I'm not going to argue. Some people are arguing, oh, it's a little too high. I'm like, we got to get going, because that's going to take us another.
How many fees I pay to Start Engine and escrow and attorneys and people to eggerize things. It's like, you're going to spend the money anyway. I just try to spend it with us.
Dawn, we are gonna. I think we have like 5 minutes left. Is there anything else that you would want to communicate to folks out there that are having a difficult time now? Just some words of wisdom to get them through this difficult period. The political climate is tough. The economic climate is tough. The pandemic climate is tough. Any words of wisdom just to pull through? Any practices that you rely on?
Self-care. This is the time to double down on that and giving yourself whatever that you need to feel better and to be stronger. I always say, if you don't take time for yourself, like, this is not the time to work harder and go extra hard. It's just not. It's the time to really double down on your mental health, your physical health. I feel like if you're not strong enough and you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, you cannot be effective in meeting your goals. I think that it is a time to look at your cash flow situation. And if you can reduce some expenses, some burn in your business, it's a great time to reduce your burn. It's a great time to partner. Like I said, if you see somebody doing something that you need, that you want to do, that you can contribute to, join forces. Everyone needs help. Like, even simple things like reposting, resharing, retweeting. Just make it your mission. And I have a give first mentality. Make it your mission to help others. And I promise you it'll come back to you. I say this, what I'm about to say, not as a brag or anything, but as just a testimony to like how paying it forward and giving first can come back. But literally 2020 has been the best financial year for me personally in many unexpected ways that I never imagined. I thought when 2020 happened and the COVID lockdown, I'm like, oh my God, I made a lot of my money as a public speaker last year. That's gone. But then this COVID environment allows for virtual things. I started an online course, finding ways to do coaching. Like, take your talent. People are looking for content all day. Get whatever hobby you're interested in, start it. You want to write a book, start it. You want to blog, start it. You want to be a food blogger or fashion, do it. You want to this is the time to do everything that you ever thought you didn't have time to do, and double down on you and make the investment in you. And if you have disposable income, diversify your investments in other things. So get into the stock market. Stock market's moving good. Invest in some startups. I've invested in Streamlytics, and I'm very excited about that investment. Get in on other things that you can be a part of. There's many, many ways to get money. There's so many ways. And now that everyone's locked in the computer all day, you have a captive audience of people that are ready to buy what you're selling.
Damn. I'm going to tell you this. You started the conversation. You said you don't know a lot of or haven't heard of any billionaire or black unicorns. One person that sold this company for $1 billion, Chinadu Acheru. He's going to be at our conference in October. So guys, look out for that information.
Please tell me so I can use that.
He turned me on to this motivational speaker, Les Brown.
Well, I'm going to tell you. He's from Ohio.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, you were as motivational as Les Brown. If I could hear you at the crack of every morning, like that would wake me up and like, it'll get me going.
income, Dawn Dickson alarm clock. No, I'm joking.
All right. So like, you need to get a platform where I could pay some money and hear you preaching so I can get going. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dawn.
Thank you for having me.